Welcome back to the deep dive. So today, we're doing something a little bit different.
Oh, yeah.
I want you to mentally fast forward with me. We are, let's say we're operating in the landscape of January 2026.
Okay, so effectively right now, if you're listening when this drops.
Exactly.
But if you're catching up later, just know we are freezing time at a very specific, and I have to say, a very weird turning point for this tech.
It is weird. I've been reading through that stack of reports you sent over, specifically that really dense analysis from PC Guide.
The one based on the David McAfee interview, right?
That's the one. And I realized something. We aren't just talking about video cards or, frame rates anymore.
No.
We are talking about a philosophical split in how we perceive reality on a computer screen.
It sounds a little dramatic, but you're actually right. It's the frame generation war.
Right.
But for the first time, the two sides, you've got AMD on one and then Nvidia, Intel in the other camp. They aren't just fighting over who is faster.
What are they fighting over?
They're fighting over the very definition of what a video game is.
That is the rabbit hole we are going down today.
It's a deep one.
We need to unpack why Nvidia is chasing what just looks like infinite speed, why AMD is suddenly slamming on the brakes and yelling, "Caution!"
And we absolutely have to explain what FSR Redstone is without putting everyone to sleep.
Yes, and maybe most importantly, we have to try and answer the question. If the computer is making up, 80% of what you see on screen?
Are you actually playing the game anymore?
Let's start with the context of early 2026. Because things have moved so fast, if I go out and I buy a high-end GPU right now or a fancy new gaming laptop, what's the baseline expectation?
The baseline is AI. It's no longer a nice-to-have feature.
Not at all.
It's the foundation. As of right now, January 2026, Nvidia has pushed their DLSS 4.5 technology to support multi-frame generation up to 6x.
6 times. Okay, I want to pause on that because that number sounds good on a box, but I don't think people realize what the math actually implies. It's kind of terrifying.
It is a little terrifying when you break it down.
Right.
So let's say you were looking at a 144 hertz monitor.
Yeah, pretty standard.
You're seeing 144 frames every single second.
Right.
With 6th generation, the physical silicon, the graphics card you just paid, I don't know, nearly $1,000 for.
Yeah.
It is only rendering 24 of those frames.
Wait, so 24 real frames
24?
and 120 fake frames.
Generated is the polite engineering term.
Okay, generated.
But yes, the AI looks at frame 1, it looks at where frame 7 is supposed to be, and it hallucinates frames 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 to fill in that gap.
It's painting a bridge between 2 points of reality.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so that's where I get stuck. If I'm playing a shooter or a racing game,
Right.
and I move my mouse during those 5 fake frames, does the game know?
That is the Achilles heel. No, it doesn't.
Oh.
Or at least not immediately.
Yeah.
Those generated frames are visual only. They don't contain any game logic. So you see the movement, but your input, your click, it didn't register until the next real frame hits the pipeline.
So visually, it looks incredibly smooth, like liquid. But physically, it feels mushy.
Like driving a sports car with a delay on the steering wheel.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
But Nvidia and Intel, who are, doing the same thing with their XS3 tech now, they are betting that the visual fluidity is worth the trade-off. They are just sprinting toward higher numbers because big number goes up, sells hardware.
And Intel is putting this in laptops now, right? The Panther Lake chip.
That's the big shift for the blue team, for Intel.
Yeah.
I've got this running on integrated graphics, so a thin laptop that used to choke on a game like Cyberpunk.
Sure.
It can now technically display it at high frame rates.
Right.
Because the chip itself is doing barely any work. The AI is doing all the heavy lifting. It's brilliant engineering, but it relies so heavily on that illusion.
So that's the speed at all costs camp. Then we have AMD, the red team. And according to this interview with David McAfee, they are doing something that usually gets you fired in Silicon Valley.
It's that.
They're saying, we aren't going to go that fast.
It's a fascinating pivot. McAfee, he's the corporate VP at AMD, and in this interview he did with Gizmodo, he explicitly says they are going to proceed very cautiously with multi-frame generation.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
Cautiously is usually just corporate speak for, we haven't figured out how to do it yet. Is that what's happening? Is this just spin?
I don't think so. Not this time. McAfee is identifying a real phenomenon, gamer fatigue. You've probably seen it in the forums yourself.
Oh, absolutely. The whole narrative that developers have just stopped optimizing games.
Yeah.
They release a stuttering mess and just say, just turn on DLSS, bro.
Exactly. It's become a crutch.
Yeah.
And AMD is pointing out a technical reality that all the marketing hype just ignores.
Which is?
Frame generation only works well if your base performance is good.
Break that down for me. Why does the base matter if the AI is supposed to fix it anyway? If I have low frames, isn't AI the solution?
Not exactly. No, it goes back to that mushy feeling we were just talking about.
Okay.
So if your base game runs at, say, 60 FPS and you boost it to 120, the latency between your clicks is about 16 milliseconds. That's fast enough that you probably don't notice the lag.
Right. That feels responsive.
But if your base game is running at 20 FPS,
Which is basically unplayable.
right, a slideshow, and you use AI to boost it to 120, your eyes see smooth motion, but your hand feels 50 milliseconds of lag.
Ah.
It creates a sensory disconnect. Your brain says, this is fast, but your hands say, this is slow. It can even cause motion sickness for some people. AMD is betting that gamers are getting tired of that feeling.
So their stance is, we aren't going to give you 6X generation because we know it feels like garbage unless you already have a $2,000 computer.
Effectively, yes. They are capping their new tech to a very strict limit to preserve the feel of the game. They're basically saying, we refuse to let you have a bad experience, even if you ask for it.
This leads us right to the new tech itself. The source talks about FSR Redstone. Is this just a fancy rebrand of FSR 4?
It's a rebrand, but it's also a foundational shift. So FSR 4 came out late last year, 2025. Redstone is the evolution. And the key insight here, the thing you really need to understand, is the move from analytical to machine learning.
Okay, hold on. We hear machine learning thrown around for everything, from toasters to toothbrushes. What does it actually mean for a pixel on my screen?
That's a great question. So previous versions of FSR, they were analytical. That means they used handwritten algorithms. The engineers wrote actual math equations that said, if this pixel is blue and the one next to it is red, draw a purple line between them.
But it was just a rule book. A very complex one, but still a rule book.
Exactly. It was rigid. NVIDIA's DLSS, on the other hand, uses a neural network. It learned what games look like by watching millions of hours of footage on a supercomputer. It has intuition.
So NVIDIA was painting with imagination and AMD was just painting by numbers.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's why DLSS usually looked better. With Redstone, AMD has finally ditched the rulebook and switched to a machine learning model. This is their catch-up moment. They're finally using an AI brain.
Okay, so they have the brain now, but they're still limiting it.
Right. Redstone is limited to 1-to-1 generation. One real frame, one generated frame, a 2x multiplier. That is it.
So while NVIDIA is doing 1 real, 5 fake,
Uh-huh.
AMD is doing 1 real, 1 fake.
Correct.
Why limit it? If you have this fancy machine learning brain now, why not let it rip? Why not go for 4x or 6x?
Artifacts.
Artifacts.
Yeah. When you predict 5 frames in a row, you are predicting a prediction of a prediction.
Yeah.
It's like the telephone game. By the time you get to that 5th frame, the image can get weird.
Weird.
Ghosting is the big one. Imagine a character running past a wall. In the real frame, they're at point A. In the next real frame, point B. If the AI has to guess 5 spots in between, it often leaves a sort of smeary trail behind the character.
Oh, I've seen that.
Yeah, because it's not quite sure where the edge of their jacket ends and the wall begins.
It creates that smeary, almost oily look.
Exactly. So by sticking to just one interpolated frame, sandwiched between 2 real ones, AMD claims Redstone eliminates obvious ghosting. They are pitching purity over velocity. They want the image to look native, even if the frame counter isn't hitting 400.
It's a gamble, though. They're asking the consumer to look at a box that says 2x speed and pick it over the one that says 6x speed, promising that the 2x experience is somehow more premium.
It is the quality versus quantity dilemma. And honestly, for the enthusiast crowd, the people who actually read these PC Guide articles, it might just work.
Yeah.
But there's another huge factor here where this whole strategy makes even more sense.
What's that?
The screen size.
You mean handheld?
I do. The handheld revolution is, it's fully matured in 2026.
I was on the subway this morning. I saw 3 different people with those devices. It's not just the Switch anymore.
No way. It's the Xbox Ally, the Legion Go 2,
Yeah.
high-fidelity PC gaming in your hands.
Yeah.
But what is the #1 constraint of a handheld device?
Battery life.
Yep.
And heat.
Yep.
You don't want to be holding a toaster.
Exactly. You cannot put a 400-watt GPU in a device you hold. You have maybe 15 to 25 watts to play
So
with.
efficiency is the only metric that matters.
Precisely. And McAfee points this out specifically in the source material. He says the value of frame interpolation on handhelds is incredibly significant.
Okay.
If you can render the game at a low frame rate, say 45 FPS to save battery, but use the AI to show the player 90 FPS.
You get the smooth experience without burning a hole in your pocket or, killing the battery in 20 minutes.
Exactly. And this is where the whole caution thing pays off again.
Yeah.
On a small 7-inch or 8-inch screen, you might not notice the lack of ultra-high frame rates, but you will notice visual glitches. If the text is unreadable, or if a character has a weird halo around them because of aggressive AI, it just ruins the immersion on a small screen.
So cleaner frames are actually more important on a small screen than just having more frames.
That's the argument. And since AMD powers almost all these handhelds, the Xbox, the Legion, the Steam Deck successors, they're optimizing for their home turf. They're playing defense.
But the source does mention Intel is coming for them here too.
They are. Intel revealed a Panther Lake handheld reference design at CES 2026. They're a piece of this pie. But for now, AMD's integration of FSR Redstone into the hardware gives them a defensive moat. They are betting that handheld gamers prefer consistency over raw theoretical speed.
Let's switch gears to the software for a second. We've been talking about FSR Redstone, which developers have to put inside the game code.
Right, it has to be integrated.
But the article also mentions AFMF 2.1.
The acronym soup never ends in this industry, does it?
Never. AFMF stands for AMD Fluid Motion Frames. How is this different from Redstone? Why do we need two different frame gen techs from the same company?
Think of Redstone as a surgical tool. The developer puts it in the engine. It knows where the walls are. It knows where the UI is. It knows all the vector motion.
That's smart.
It's smart. AFMF is a sledgehammer. It's driver level.
So it just sits on top of everything, like a filter.
It sits right on top. You just toggle a switch in your AMD settings, and it tries to inject frames into anything. You could be playing the original Call of Duty from 2003, or Skyrim, or some indie game made by one person in their basement.
It sounds amazing for retro gaming.
It's a huge feature. It breathes new life into old catalogs. Suddenly, Fallout 4 is running at 120 FPS on your mid-range card. But, and the article has a big red warning box about this.
Uh-oh.
Do not cross the streams.
What happens if I turn on the driver level injection and the in-game Redstone at the same time? Do I get double the frames?
No, you break reality. The latency just spikes through the roof, and the visual artifacts compound. You get a smeary, unresponsive mess. It's an either-or choice, not a stackable buff.
Good to know. Don't get greedy. Pick one lane.
Right. If the game has Redstone built in, use that. It's smarter. If it doesn't, then you can use the sledgehammer.
I want to zoom out to the economics of all this for a moment.
Yeah, good idea.
Because we can talk about algorithms and tensor cores all day, but usually this comes down to what can I afford?
Always.
The article lists some deals for January 2026. And looking at these prices, high-end PC gaming is not getting cheaper.
No, inflation and fabrication costs have just kept the floor high. The era of the cheap high-end GPU is, I think, gone.
They list an Asus TUF RTX 5070 Ti. This is a solid card, right? The upper mid-range standard.
Yep.
It's on sale for $849.
That's nearly a mortgage payment for some people, just for the video card.
And the processor, the Ryzen 7 9800X3D, is $454. So before you even buy a case or RAM or a power supply or a monitor, you're already at $1,300.
This is the crucial context. Why does FSR Redstone or DLSS even matter? It's because the average person cannot afford the hardware required to run these games at native resolution anymore.
The software is subsidizing the hardware costs.
Exactly. If FSR Redstone can take a $300 entry-level card and through the magic of AI make it perform like an $800 card, that's the most valuable feature in the box. It's the democratization of performance.
It's not just a feature anymore. It's an economic lifeline for the hobby.
It really is.
Without it, PC gaming becomes a rich person's club.
It does, and that's why AMD's strategy of quality 2X might just win the mid-range market. If you are buying a budget card, you know you aren't getting 400 GPs, you just want a solid 60 or 90 that looks good.
Yeah.
AMD's targeting that good enough sweet spot, while Nvidia chases the god-tier enthusiasts.
So if we synthesize all of this for the listener, we are looking at a clear fork in the road for 2026.
A very distinct fork.
On the left, we have the Nvidia and Intel velocity approach. Use AI to generate up to, 80% of the content, push frame rates into the stratosphere, and just accept that some of those frames are hallucinations, but bet that the human eye is too slow to care.
It's the Blade Runner future.
Yeah.
It's shiny, It's fast, it's synthetic, and for esports or people with unlimited budgets, it's incredible tech.
And on the right, we have AMD's Redstone approach. Cap the generation at 2x. Use machine learning to ensure those few generated frames are basically indistinguishable from the real ones. Focus on the feel and the latency, especially for the handheld market.
The purist approach, or, as close to purist as you can get while
Right.
still using AI. It's pragmatic.
So for the listener who is sitting there with their finger hovering over the buy button on a new GPU or a new handheld, what is the one thing they need to remember from this deep dive?
Don't be seduced by the biggest number on the box.
Right.
6x frame gen looks great on a marketing slide. But you need to ask, what is the base frame rate? If the card can't render the game well on its own, multiplying the garbage by 6 just gives you 6 times more garbage.
Quality over quantity. This whole conversation leaves me with a weird feeling. We're talking about standard gaming now involving an AI that's just guessing what happens next.
It's the new normal.
But it reminds me of the ship of Theseus paradox. You replace one plank, it's the same ship. You replace all the planks, is it still the same ship?
Right, it's an identity crisis.
If I'm playing a game where 5 out of 6 frames are generated by NVIDIA's neural network and not the game developer's code, am I playing Cyberpunk or am I playing NVIDIA's dream of Cyberpunk?
That is the billion-dollar question. We are moving from rendering to interpreting. And eventually, the AI might just decide it knows how to direct the scene better than the director did.
And on that slightly existential bombshell, we'll wrap up. 2026 is going to be a weird, beautiful, and probably slightly glitchy year for reality. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.